Buying a home for the first time, it does not have to be intimidating. The key is simply to plan and prepare. I want you guys to feel super comfortable and confident when purchasing a property. Implementing what I'm sharing with you today will provide you with awareness about the process. And when we have that sense of clarity, it tends to help us make better decisions. Hey everybody, it's Marissa. Welcome back to my channel. And if you are new here, welcome and thank you so much for stopping by. Be sure to like this video if you want more videos like this one, and then hit the subscribe button and turn on post notification bell. That way you know the next time I release my next video. The first thing we want to do is start looking at the pretty homes. I get it, but we need to take steps to plan and prepare. So with that being said, the very first step that needs to be taken is to plan your finances. The very first piece of this that you should be thinking about is what you can afford for a monthly housing payment. A really good rule of thumb is that you shouldn't really spend more than like 25 to 30% of your monthly income for housing. Do a quick math equation with me. Let's just say your monthly housing income is around $7,500. Multiply that number by 30% and your answer should be about $2,250. That should be about what your budget is to spend on your housing payment per month. The next factor that you need to determine is how much cash you can actually pay out of pocket to go towards purchasing a home. You will have expenses. You'll have an appraisal. You'll have an inspection. You'll have your escrow deposit. You'll have your closing costs, which are roughly 2 to 5% of your total purchase price. Your closing costs ultimately include title policy fees, HOA fees, taxes, recording fees to file your deed. So we want to make sure that we're planning for these expenses. Now, once you've planned your monthly budget and you've planned how much money you can spend out of pocket to go towards purchasing a home, before we start browsing the homes, we want to make sure that we're talking to a lender first. And the reason behind this is because we want to obtain a very vital piece of paper. We need to obtain a pre-approval letter. So go ahead, reach out to your real estate agent, reach out to family members and friends who previously purchased a home, and ask for some referrals to some local lenders that'll do a great job for you. You should definitely do your due diligence and look at the different options. Check out big box banks, check out what the local lenders are offering, and see which one works best for you. This is extremely important. It's gonna tell you two things. Number one, it's gonna tell you if you can even get a loan, and number two, it's going to tell you how much you're pre-approved for the max purchase price. Be sure to ask your lender what documents they require. That way you can gather those documents and submit it to them and just make it super efficient and smooth. Getting a pre-approval letter will give you insight on what your estimated interest rate will be, what your estimated monthly payment will be, and your down payment percentage. Again, clarity. We want to have this clarity going into the process so that we're not shocked by anything that comes our way. Drum roll, please. Now we can go home shopping. So here are some quick tips to help you shop for a home. I highly suggest using your realtor's MLS/website because a lot of times buyers tend to look at homes on Zillow and realtor.com, which is fine. You know, they're often great resources to use. At the same time, the only issue I have with Zillow and realtor.com is sometimes I'll get a buyer and they'll send me a property and they're like, oh my gosh, Marissa, I love this one. Can we please go see it? And I'm like, the property listing is outdated. Yeah, so realtor.com and Zillow tend to have outdated information and some of the homes you might be seeing may not even be available. So be sure to use live, updated information. The next tip I'll give you is not to get emotionally attached to a home. The reason why I suggest not to get emotionally attached is because the last thing you want is to fall head over heels over this house and something along the lines of once you go under contract, something falls through. Maybe something came up on the inspection report that's like a super big red flag and you don't want to move forward on the property anymore. Things happen all the time and you just don't want to be super attached to the home and then something go wrong. So please, just try to keep an open mind and know that the right home is out there for you. The next tip I'll give you is to create a must-have/needs list and a wants list. Just having what you absolutely can't live without and what's like kind of negotiable is great to help you make a better decision as well. My next tip, which is a big one, buyers, be careful what you say when you are touring homes. Some sellers tend to have cameras around their home and they may have the audio feature on those cameras. The last thing we want to do is insult a seller by accident. You don't want to talk about terms of an offer. Bring up any questions or concerns after the tour is over. So when it comes to making an offer, there's a number of things that we're going to be factoring in, not just the purchase price. That's definitely a big deal, but there's a lot of other things that you can negotiate during this process. Things to think about are the purchase price, of course, inspection period, appraisal, and potentially even leasebacks or post-occupancies. When it comes onto the inspection period, go ahead and sit down and decide how much time do you need to have an inspection scheduled, get the report back, and make a decision on how you want to proceed. Look at the repairs that need to be done. Talk through this with your real estate agent so that you guys can plan efficiently for this. When it comes on to the leasebacks / post-occupancies, this is a really good tool to use because if your seller needs a little extra time to stay in the house, maybe they still need to look for their house that they're gonna buy, maybe their house isn't closing for another month, maybe the new house they're building won't be ready for another 3 months, if you, as the buyer, are a little bit flexible with the date that you need to move in by, this is a great tool to use, so be sure to chat with your agent about that too. During negotiating, a seller will either accept the offer, decline the offer, or counter the offer. Once your offer has been accepted, this contract is the map for the transaction. We will be referring to this contract to make sure that we're meeting the dates and fulfilling our duties per the contract. A couple of tips I'll give you is to ask your agent if there's any other ways that you can strengthen your offer, and have your lender reach out to the listing agent on the property and just chit chat with them. A lot of the times the lenders will just kind of give them a little bit of a background on your situation and reassure the listing agent that you are a qualified buyer for that home. All right, time to talk about inspections. So when doing an inspection, you want a certified home inspector to complete this inspection for you. What we are going to be looking for are major issues that could cause problems in the future to the home and financially. Little cosmetic repairs around the home should not be the reason that you break a deal. Most homes are gonna have little faults to them. You know, there may be a little hole in the wall or some things that need patching here and there. But if it's just a quick trip to Home Depot or to call the dad up to fix it for you, don't let that break the deal. We're looking for major plumbing issues where your septum tank is going to be backed up, or you're looking for major electrical issues. If your electrical panel is a fire hazard, for example, if your air conditioning unit is towards the end of its lifespan, that may be something that you want to negotiate. So just remember, look for the major problems. Like I said before, an inspection period ranges sometimes between 7 to 15 days. So based on your contract, that will determine how much time that you have to negotiate these repairs. So the way this usually plays out is you either move forward with the property, negotiate the repairs, or you walk away from the property because you're like, wow, this is not what I want to get myself into if that's the case, okay? So those are basically your 3 options. And it's completely up to you to decide what you're comfortable with. Now that leads us to talking about lender / appraisals. So at this point in the process, your lender is going to go through a thorough underwriting process to give you a conditional loan approval. Once they have the conditional loan approval, they may require additional documentation, so just be sure to submit that back to them in a timely manner. The next step is that the lender will order an appraisal. This is really for the lender to determine how much money they're actually going to lend you. A lender will typically only finance the value of the home. What a lender doesn't want to do is to lend you money for a home that's not actually worth it, if that makes any sense. Basically, a lender wants to make sure that your offer of $500,000 isn't overshot by $50,000. So I'm going to give you a couple of examples of how this can look. Scenario number 1, let's say that you get an appraisal on a home and you are offering to pay $500,000 for the home. Let's say the appraisal came back at $520,000. Well, that's fantastic news because the lender will finance your offer of $500,000 because that's actually less than what it's worth, which is good for you and for the lender. Scenario number 2 is that you offer $500,000 to purchase a home, and once you get the appraisal report back, it actually came in at $490. There's a difference from what you offer them to what your lender will actually give you a loan for. So that's a $10,000 difference. And the 3 options you have are to either come up with the $10,000 yourself and put that towards it. Number 2 is that the seller comes down in price by $10,000 or whatever your actual scenario is. Number 3 is that you guys split the difference or renegotiate. Maybe the seller will come down by 5 and you can make up the other 5, something along those lines. And that leads us to the next part, which is closing time. By this point, your lender will have sent out your clear to close. The next part is you're going to schedule your final walkthrough. Usually your realtor will do this for you, and you'll show up to the property and take a last look at it and make sure that it's all good to go and that you're ready to sign off on the closing documents. Closing table. Your realtor and title agent and lender will sort of coordinate this part, and they'll tell you the date and time of your closing. You'll show up and you'll bring a valid government ID, and you'll make sure to wire the balance that's owed to the title company. And your lender and title company will be sure to disclose that information to you. Be sure to ask questions about the closing document if something pops up that you're unsure about. And then the last thing to do is go ahead and put the ink on the paper. Congratulations, you bought your first house. You'll get your keys and then you get to move into your property. I get it, the home buying process can feel a little bit overwhelming, and I really hope that this guide helps the process feel a little less overwhelming. Even if it still feels like a lot, at least now you are well informed and you have clarity going into the process. Just from watching this video today, you are one step ahead of the game. You are more prepared than most other buyers out there. And for that, I applaud you. Remember, preparation leads to success in the home buying process. So plan, prepare, and be sure to ask a lot of questions if you're unsure of anything. I'm wishing you all the best of luck in your home purchasing experience, and I hope this guide made it that much easier for you.